Chuck and I are so very glad you're here. And tonight's topic is gaining perspective, considerations for the upcoming school year. And we know it'll look different. And so we've kind of been in that crisis mode, and we just kind of wanted to talk about that to kind of give us a sense of peace as we go into the summer. So that's the purpose for tonight. Chuck, do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, that is what we want to do, is get you just thinking about what it's going to be like when you go back to school, and just giving you a little tidbits from our experience on what has worked in the past, especially for me as an administrator. I'll be talking mostly to administrators, but teachers, you can take this back to them, but of what we kind of need to be building on as we go into this new year.
So Dr. Roberts I'm going to do a little bit and then I'm going to let him take over. Dr. Roberts was my principal at my elementary school for quite some time. And I just developed such an admiration and respect for him. He truly is a servant leader. And he believes in his teachers. He believes in people. His heart is pure gold. And he is just the epitome of a servant leader and a role model. So I am so glad that he is now part of the School Rubric family. So Chuck, you want to kind of finish that a little bit?
Yes, I will. Let me just say that when I was moved to an elementary school after spending 24 years in a 5th and 6th grade campus, what scared me the most was kindergarten. And so Traci, I learned everything I needed to know about kindergarten through Traci, because she is just amazing. And I use what she taught me in my courses here at DBU. So Traci is amazing and can learn. Like I said, I learned so much from her because I was scared to death of kindergarten.
It was the cutest thing. And so our relationship has continued to
Yes.
develop and evolve. And he invites me to Dallas Baptist to talk to his classes where he's a professor and helps grow new teachers. So
Yes.
just amazing all around.
Yes.
And so, as we know, I'm Traci Browder. I started teaching 3rd grade when I first came to the profession, and I've been a reading specialist and an instructional coach working with K-5 all the way up to 6th grade a couple of times. And I'm currently a kindergarten teacher, a mentor, and just love to have kind of this live learning classroom environment. I do have IntelliGoji, the podcast. It's searchable by Traci Browder on any major podcast platform. Voice Ed and School Rubric have been major supporters, and I'm the curator of Operation Teacher Relief. It's a digital crisis learning storehouse on YouTube. I contribute regularly to School Rubric and the podcast, and really just love to inspire people and help ignite that spark for education in kids.
And Traci is the epitome of a master teacher, where not only kids learn, but adults. So she is just amazing, and you will learn so much tonight from her.
And I'm glad you all are here. So let's talk for a minute. We've done the introductions. We know where everybody's from, but let's put something in perspective for us before we get started. Is your school still in session, or are you on summer break? Where are you right now? Let's talk about that for a couple of minutes.
All right, I'm going to talk to the administrators and teachers. This can be for you too, but I'm going to speak mostly to the administrators. During this time, the school community is going to be looking to you for guidance. You're going to be the one they're going to be looking to for guidance and for reassurance as we start school back in the fall. So I'm hoping and praying that your districts are working with you so that you will know what you will be doing once the school starts. But administrators, this is going to be an opportunity to build stronger relationships with the students, the parents, and the staff. And during this time, you're going to have to be more of a servant leader as well during this time. And when I looked up the definition of a servant leader, it is the main goal of a leader is to serve. And that's what you're going to have to do. And let me give you just some examples of what I did to try to build relationships with the staff and with the parents and the students. I was always out for morning and afternoon car duty for pickup and letting off the kids. I was with the teachers and I got to talk with the parents and meet the kids a lot. So I was always out there both in the morning and the afternoon. I did this more at the elementary, and I, looking back, wish I had done it more at the intermediate, but I ate with the students in the cafeteria. I took a different grade level each day and just tried to eat with them because a lot of parents at Spencer came to eat with their kids. So I wanted to be in there with them. So it was a great time to just talk with the kids, learn more about them, and to build those relationships with the parents as well. You need to be visible all day. And Professor Oldenburg here at DBU, when she was a principal, she had this saying, and this is true. Her saying was, people during the school day, paper after school. So she always worked, and we always try to work with people during the school day. So one other thing I tried to do was attend all student evening functions. I would visit with the parents and just talk to them about them, learn more about them, and so I would know what we needed to do during the school day. So administrators, you've got to build those relationships and build them stronger and be that servant leader. Tracy, is there anything else?
Absolutely. And Chuck was amazing at all of those things. Every single thing he said was what teachers and the community love about him. And there is such a void without his particular unique style of caring, servant leader leadership. But for teachers, when we think about the role of the administrator, and oftentimes we don't think about the role of the administrator, but they're getting information from the CDC, who's pushing it down to the districts, and the districts and the boards are pushing it down to principals.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately the principal has to make all of these decisions that affect and impact his or her campus. So
Yep.
there's a huge weight on the administrator's shoulders that we as teachers on the front lines often don't think of. So what can we do to help them? We can facilitate a cohesive environment in our campus, especially not knowing exactly what it looks like when we return, and there's going to be anxiety with parents and kids. So we can be the front line of cohesion and have patience and a lot of flexibility. Flexibility is going to be at the very core of every single thing we do. And they're under stress, just like we are. They're facing a lot of stress, and we sometimes forget this when we're on the front lines. So the one thing I want to leave us with when we talk about emotional support is that we often feel like as teachers that we need to lean on their shoulders, when in fact, we need to be their shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about the teachers at emotional support, what does that look like? Especially if we're in a blended or hybrid environment, or if we're still doing the virtual learning, and if we're in class, we need to be present. And what that means is we need to have our eyes open, looking at the kids. How do they look? Are they disconnected? Can we even see them? Is their video muted? Is a follow-up phone call necessary to check on that individual student? Our ears need to be open. How do they sound? Are they sad? Are they disengaged? Are they not talking? That also may require a follow-up phone call. And ask yourself in this situation, what can I do to get better? How can I better connect? That's a whole different conversation, is ways to continue to connect with your kids, with your parents, but mostly be present. And I want to talk about the shift in language. There's been so much talk about we need to fill the gaps. We need to fill the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And on my podcast, I was talking with Stephen Hurley of Voice Ed, and we had this conversation. And when we say filling gaps, it's actually, these are his words, it's a deficit thinking mindset. We need to focus on solid, good teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do all the time, right, Chuck?
That's right. That is
And
right.
yeah, and so we need to differentiate. We need to have small group instruction. We need to do the same things that we always do. So honestly, COVID-19 is no different from coming back to a school year any other time. We are going to do that sound, solid teaching.
Exactly. And with the teachers, and the administrator can help with this. If the teachers, which Spencer was awesome at this. Traci is still awesome at this. All of the teachers there. If you teach the rigorous, relevant work that is engaging to the kids and aligned to your standards, you don't have to worry about state assessment. You don't have to, it'll take care of itself. So you teach what is best for your kids, aligned with your standards, and don't worry about state assessment. It'll take care of itself.
Absolutely. Oh, so that means we're going to the chat room. Sorry.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we just talked about emotional support. So what type of supports do you think students, teachers, administrators, and parents will need as we transition into a new school year? Let's talk about it.
All right, administrators, for team building, that's going to be a big, big thing you're going to have to do with your staff, with your parents, with your students, is y'all are a team. And administrators, you've got to be part of the conversation. You have got to be part of the conversation and know what you are going to do. You're going to have to develop how everything is going to be implemented. And of course, each district will be different. You will have one district that may do the, like they were talking about, the AB, the hybrid learning, and another one say, no, we're going to start and just like we do normal. But you're going to have to, administrators, you're going to have to be a part of that conversation. You're going to have to lead your school, and you need to involve your teachers as well. You need to involve them. You can't do all of it. They have to be a part of it, and then they will help you tremendously. My teachers at Spencer, all of my schools, they always helped me tremendously. I relied on them and their expertise, and that's what you're going to have to do, administrators, is rely on their expertise with their kids, with their families, as we go through this different way we may have to start.
And with those unknowns, there's something I want to say to teachers, but this will also be relevant for administrators. It's about acceptance. We need to accept that we don't know a lot of things. We don't have a lot of answers. We know there are contingency plans, and contingency plans bring a little bit of angst. We were just talking about that in our chat room, but we need to get to a place where we're okay with not knowing and decisions not being made yet, which is so difficult for the teacher by nature because we're used to kind of steering that ship. But we need to transition from that place of fragility to resiliency and move to a place of physical and mental peace. And there's two things that I want to leave all of us with when we talk about this. And I told our chat room that I'm coming at team building from a different angle, that we need to get to a point when we get to this acceptance, it gives us peace. And then we can focus on rest and restoration, because this has been a very emotional time for all of us. So if we rest and then we figure out what we need to restore ourselves, whether it's connecting with your family, a nature walk, binge watching on Netflix, what brings you that peace that you can restore yourself and be recharged for next year? And so when we talk about team building, now let's transition to thinking about our kids. And we keep talking about the social emotional learning, emotional trauma, but we have to be cautious that we don't stay in that place, because that can kind of become some negative talk for kids and really start resonating with them. And we have to be careful not to make a really, really big deal out of it, and focus on celebrating the resilience, because I think COVID-19 it's a valuable lesson that we're learning from life's challenges. This is one of the first real challenges that our kids have had to experience. And how do we manage and navigate that? And parents and kids and teachers, we have all been resilient, and that is worthy to be celebrated. And so when we return to school, we can't go back to the way things were. There's no more just paper, pencil, sit and get. We have rocked remote learning and done some technological things that some of us never thought we would ever do. So we need to keep moving in that direction and keep that momentum going with exploratory and experiential learning and inquiry-based learning. And Chuck and I have always had wonderful conversations about setting the classroom free,
Right.
having that conversation. And the same thing can occur in a virtual learning environment. It just takes a little bit more creativity. And when we do return to school, we're coming back to the beginning of school versus this happening in the middle of school. So think about what you're going to do. Are you going to reach out to each family and ask some questions about the kids and get to know the kids? And then your first video meeting could be breaking up in chat rooms like we just did. That's one of the beauties of you experiencing these chat rooms, that when you host your first meeting, you can break the kids up in chat rooms and you can have these guess who cards. And they have to figure out, like, I might have Chuck's guess who, and I've got to figure out, which one of you likes pizza with no cheese. So just tearing down those walls in a very innovative way. Talk to your families in advance about them buying M&Ms and doing that age-old M&M game, and you get to see the kids pour out some M&Ms. Okay, if you've got red, you've got to tell us if you have a cat or a dog. So just really be forward thinking. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just tapping into some things that we haven't had to use in the classroom. But again, just one of the silver linings coming out of COVID-19, that we have to be creative in how we tap into all of those things. And just the mindfulness piece, we have to remember that families are still stressed. In our chat room, we were talking about the family unit and how the return might possibly look if it's hybrid. What does that do with parents that have to go to work and they have to, figure out where do they place their kids? And so we have to be mindful of what's on families' plates, and we have to be cautious and remember, just like during this remote learning, we really lightened the load on kids in terms of work. And there was so much value and there was mastery learning. It wasn't just all this paper and busy work. It was so strategic. So we have to keep that in mind and get the best bang for the buck with the content that we use, and remember not to stress the families out. Chuck, what are your thoughts?
I'm thinking that we have started using technology, and like people who wouldn't have tried it or have used it. Like for me, example, would never have thought I would be teaching online, and I did this last semester synchronously. And so I think that, like Traci said, we're going to have new opportunities to meet with parents. We're going to have new opportunities to visit with them, to visit with students that we didn't have before. And we've always talked about flipped classrooms. I think we're going to see more of that as we start this new year. And think about how that's going to be with the parents. They're going to be learning with their kids. And I think that is something that's going to be very grateful, and it's going to be really, really nice.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So let's jump down to talking about decisions. What stays and what goes? So what we mean by that is what we've implemented over the summer, over this shelter in place. Start having some thought processes in the summer. Like Chuck just mentioned a few things. Think about flipped learning. Our parents now have owned teaching. They have been our co-facilitators.
Right.
Many parents are not going to want to let that go. I was just talking to a teacher earlier today and shared with her a story of one of my parents. Said, hey, when we were learning about 2D shapes, I found this amazing video. You might want to share it with other parents. If you're doing 3D shapes next week, you might want to consider looking for this video. So they actually own the learning. And when we go back to school, we still have to keep that. Parents, that relationship cannot change.
Right.
Think about some of us who are parents, and we say, when we've been doing homework with kids in the past and the math was Greek and we didn't understand it. Now we've worked so diligently. We've created videos teaching the kids and the parents, and then the parents go and facilitate that learning. Those are best practices that we need to hold on to in this new era of teaching and learning. And connecting outside the classroom, virtual field trips,
Hmm.
virtual enrichment, connecting with other schools. Chuck, for instance, at Dallas Baptist, he teaches in the education department. Maybe some of those young, budding people who are
Hmm.
preparing to be teachers, that's a virtual conversation for the high school level of those preparing to be teachers. So
Yes.
wonderful opportunities
Right.
that we need to bridge some gaps and connect. Chuck, you want to join in on that?
Yes, that would be amazing to be able to talk with. What I would love for my students would be talk to master teachers. Say that we were in class and we wanted to visit with Traci virtually. We could do that, and she could talk to them and talk to the students. That this is how I do my classroom. This is what I look for, and this is how I plan. And that just gives these kids just more deep learning. And we're going to be able to do that now that we've used technology and we're all set up. Um, One thing they're looking at here at DBU is I might have a student online in my classroom while I'm teaching my face-to-face class, and they'll be joining online. So that is going to be new and it's going to be exciting. Flipped learning. One of the great things with that is that parents and kids can replay that video. And if they didn't get it the first time, they can go back and get it again. And so the parent is also learning with the students, and that's going to just bring deeper relationships between the parent and the child as well.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of jump back in on that. I've adopted this phrase, and you're going to laugh at it, that we need to continue the goose. And what that means is at the end of each week during remote learning, my entire grade level, and I have several of my teammates on with us now, but my entire grade level, all kindergartners would log into this one goose chase game that we would run simultaneously. And it was from the week worth of learning that they
Hmm.
got to do these fun scavenger hunt based mission activities. And some of it was just for fun, but a lot of it was connected to learning. So I say we have to continue the goose. And it may not be goose chase for you. Maybe it's some other type of interactive activity. And, I was thinking about this. I'm like, what does this look like? Maybe a whole class. And I've seen on some social media platforms with PLNs, and I know this is allowed in some educational entities, so don't get shocked when I say this, but maybe a class TikTok. And what that could be is the class has to prove, they have to do some things before they get to do that class TikTok. They only get to do it if they can figure out ways that algebra can be used in the real world. And they have to present that to the teacher. And
Yeah.
if they can rock it, then they get to make a class TikTok. And that's another way to use technology
Right.
and really keep the kids connected. My son was learning about Shakespeare today and literally was about to pull his hair out. And I got to thinking, what if they could make like their own rap
Hmm.
lyrics for Shakespeare? So they're practicing translating and digging into and understanding, what does this mean? What are these words? And then how can I put it in context where I can connect and relate?
Right.
So just continuing that type of creativity when we return to school, whether it's hybrid, whether we're in class, whether it's completely remote, has such value that we just absolutely cannot lose.
Right. And one of our parts of our lesson plan that we have our students at DBU go through is using technology to enhance learning, student use. This time has given us great insight on what we can do to enhance learning for the kids using technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And friends, that wraps up our conversation. I think Chuck and I have thoroughly enjoyed this
Yes.
time together. I know I learned a lot from the chats that I
Hmm.
was able to participate in, and just hearing all the different stages that we're in, but also that we all share so many commonalities of what we're dealing with. So we hope your takeaway is to get some rest and be
Uh-huh.
restored and get to a place of peace. So these are the ways that you can contact Chuck and me.
Yes.
Um, Super active on Twitter, I am. You can message me. You have my email address. And then Chuck is available through his email
Hmm.
right there at the top. So we hope you've enjoyed our time together. We
Yes.
certainly appreciate you taking time out of your Wednesday evening to be with us.
Absolutely.